This house was built about 1740, and it was owned by a man named Isaiah Hoyt, who was a Tory and a British sympathizer. And when the British attacked Danbury in 1777, I think, they marched right by this house and did not burn it because Isaiah Hoyt was friendly with them. But it didn't work too well for Isaiah Hoyt, because when the British were forced to leave Danbury, were driven out, the local people went after Isaiah and were going to tar and feather him and use him as a bad example, and he fled to Canada. His house was seized by the government and sold at auction to a family named Porter, who ran a bed and breakfast inn here until 1900. And in 1900 it was bought by the Knowles family, who ran Shadyside Farm. We call it Shadyside Farm because all the Dutch elm trees that lined the front of the property. And back then it was a dirt road. And we've seen pictures of just the dirt road. The house is built within about 10 feet of the road. Back then they wanted it as close to the road as they could get it. It was more convenient that way, but now everybody, I think the house would be at the other end of the property. But it's a beautiful old house. And, we bought it from the Barnards, and Mrs. Barnard was the daughter of the last farmer Knowles, who died, I think he died in the 1940s, and his wife lived here till 64. Then his daughter lived here until she sold it to us in 1985. The house still has interesting facets of an old house because it had changed hands so few times. There's still Norfolk silver door latches on all the colonial doors that you just don't find in old houses anymore unless they're museums. It's sort of like living in a museum to have lived here. We find something every time we dig into the basement. We found crockery and metal pots and old newspapers stuffed in the wall from World War II. And it's interesting to read history as it was printed in the local Danbury News Times in 1942 through 1944. And here is the Parsons cabinet, where they kept their best china, and they call it the Parsons cabinet because when the parson came, which was their major visitor, that's where they kept their best dishes.